Alright, in this video we are going to learn how to graph polynomial functions, but before we actually begin graphing, this section is going to talk about the end behavior of polynomial functions. Alright, so students will be able to determine the end behavior of a polynomial by looking at the degree and leading coefficient of the equation. Alright, so two things we need to know or review on. What is the degree of a polynomial and what is the leading coefficient? So the degree of a polynomial, right? The degree of a polynomial, the question you have to ask is it even or odd? Right? That is what you have to ask, right? But what do we talk about the degree of the polynomial? That is, you look at the variable with the highest exponent. And the exponent is the degree. Okay? That's what you have to ask. Once you know that, then even or odd, that will help give us some information on the end behavior. The next part is the leading coefficient. Alright. What that is, the question you need to ask, is it positive or negative? Right. Leading coefficient is the value, or is the number that's in front of the variable. Alright, of the first term. Alright, so those are two things you need to ask. Is it even or odd, positive or negative? So let's look at our first equation. Alright, so here's a little chart that we'll be using. Right? So, if looking at the degree is odd or is the degree even, that'll determine which row we use. And is the leading coefficient positive or negative, we determine which column we use. All right, so we're going to find those two information and then find out, and then we'll be able to fill in the information. All right, so the first example is negative 5x cubed. Well, here, this is the only variable, so that means the degree is 3, so the degree is odd, and the number in front is right here, and it's negative, so the leading coefficient is negative. I was going to say odd. Oh my gosh. Alright, so there's our two. Now using the chart, alright, so you want to copy this chart down. Alright. So here we go. So I will pause this video, copy down this chart, and then we can continue, and then hit play and then follow along. So the degree is odd. Alright, so we're in this row. The leading coefficient is negative. We're here, so that means we are talking about this part. Alright, so what that means is what you're going to say. This is what you're going to say. This is how you describe it. Excuse me. Excuse me. So you're going to say when x approaches negative infinity, then f of x approaches positive infinity. And then when x approaches positive infinity, then f of x approaches negative infinity. Right? So this right here is what you're stating. Right? That's what you will write to describe the end behavior. Now, what does that mean for in terms of graphing? All right, end behavior is we're looking at the ends of the graph. We don't care what's going on in between ends right now. All right, so this says when x approaches negative infinity. So here's the x-axis. We start here in the middle, and we're going negative infinity means we're going left on the x-axis. As I'm going left on the x-axis, then f of x, which is your y-axis, so this is your f of x, and this is your x-axis. So as I am going this way on the x-axis, then f of x is positive, so that means I'm going up. So as I'm going left, I'm going up, so in other words, I am going this direction. All right. So my end behavior, so the end of this, whatever this graph is going to be going up this direction. Now, when x is approaching positive infinity, in other words, it's going right, then f of x is going down. So I'm going this direction. All right? See how I did not connect between? Because I have no idea what's going on between. I know the ends are going to go in this direction. So I start this way, and as I continue with the right, that is what's happening. All right, let's look at the next example. Here is the variable with the highest degree, so therefore this is the term we look at. So the degree is even, and the leading coefficient is positive. So even and positive. Here's even, here's positive. So we're talking about this one. Okay? So what that says is, you notice I like to write this first, then this, write this first, then this. So in other words, as x, so as x approaches, that's what the arrow means, approaches negative infinity. In other words, as x goes to the left, then it goes up. So in other words, the end behavior of this, as I go left, I'm going up. Now this says as I'm going right on the x-axis, because positive and x, so I'm going right on the x-axis, so I'm going in this direction. This tells me I'm still going up. So that's what it looks like there. So both ends are up. All right? And how would you describe it? You can describe it writing it this way if you want. All right? Let's look at the third example. Here's the first term. This is the one with the highest variable on exponent. So the degree, that's odd, and this is positive. So the leading term is positive. So odd and positive. So here's odd, here's positive, so we're talking about this one, right? So what this is saying, as I'm going left on the x-axis, so as I'm going this direction over here, I'm going down. This is on the right-hand side of the y-axis, or I'm going to the right on the x-axis, so I'm over here. This tells me I'm going up. So that's how the ends will look on that one. And when you have a degree is odd and the leading coefficient positive, if you want to describe, that means we have to write this. This is what you will write. You will write this right here. That's the reason why you want to copy this chart down, because once you figure out the degree and the leading coefficient, all you have to do is write this. All right? This right here, I'm doing here, is showing you what it actually means in graphing, because eventually you're going to have to graph these. If you haven't figured it out, the last one, the degree is even, and the leading coefficient is negative. So even and negative. So here's even, here's negative, so we're talking about this one. Right, hang on, we already talked about this one. So let me describe this. So this is what you will write. You'll write this right here, and that will be your answer. But to interpret this answer, I'm going to show you what it means. So as I'm going to the left on the x-axis, this tells me I'm going down. Here it says as I'm going to the right on the x-axis, this tells me I'm going down. Hence, both ends are down. Right? So all graphs that we will ever encounter will always be one of these four. The end behavior will always be either they'll both be up, both be down, or they'll be opposites. All graphs will be one of these four.